Well, the decolonization movement had the wish to change the focus from the established canon, which is, as you said, mainly written by dead white men, and to give more importance to black writers, female writers, and so on and so forth, to focus on the experience of the margins. From a strictly academic perspective, there's nothing wrong with wanting to see what the minorities were saying. I worked on the contrast between the 19th century French canon and the minor authors that did not in fact make it through the canon. And it is a fascinating question. Why would we read, for instance, Baudelaire and Victor Hugo and so on and so forth, rather than Jean Lorrain or another sort of forgotten writer of a similar period? The canon has never been a set, fixed thing. It's always evolutive and depends on what people are interested in at a specific time. But what we've seen recently is a wish to politicize the writings studied by university students or school pupils in order to promote the narrative that the Western, the European civilization as we know it has been in fact destructive and has done nothing but oppress women, people of color, sexual orientation minorities, and so on and so forth. The trouble with this perspective is that it is fundamentally destructive. It doesn't wish to transmit and preserve so much as it wishes to criticize and destroy the reputation of the established authors. The problem when focusing, for instance, on what the let's say the Afro-Caribbean French literature has produced recently, rather than considering the long tradition of French literature, is that in fact the authors of the Francophone sphere in the 20th century were in fact deeply steeped in the 19th, 18th, 17th, 16th, even medieval canon, and they knew lots about the French literature that French children nowadays don't really hear about. And similarly, well, you couldn't have Toni Morrison if you don't have Shakespeare. All of these writers might have had some distance, might have had a complex attitude towards the white canonical authors, but they were also experts in them in a way. No one just woke up one day and said, I'm going to be an author without having first read the great things of the past. And the narrative promoted in the decolonization curriculum is that everything that happened in the 20th century, before the 20th century, has to be either discarded or reassessed, and now we have to focus on marginal experience, while this marginal experience is, if we want to see it honestly, already rooted and intertwined in this continuous tradition. So the other negative consequence that it has is that it doesn't transmit the love for certain literary traditions. So if I tell you, would you like to take a course on Shakespeare and see that he was an evil, racist, misogynist, that's not what is going to make that author look interesting. I believe that transmission is, above all, a matter of love and appreciation, which can come with some distance towards writers' personal opinions. But in my generation, we were taught to keep, here again, a certain respectful distance towards certain authors' private lives. So, for instance, when I was growing up, homosexuality was not yet something that could be discussed openly in classrooms, but when we raised the question of Proust's homosexuality in a literature class, my literature professor said something like, this is none of our business, because here we are looking at what he does with words and the beauty and craft of his style and so on and so forth. And that, in a way, is much more respectful than focusing on the fact that someone is a well, represents an oppressed minority. If the only thing I say about you is that you were oppressed and evil people did bad things to you, that doesn't make you as good as if I say that you created wonderful things that allow everyone to touch something about our shared humanity, the experience of estrangement, the experience of rejection, or the experience of passionate love. All of that is not a matter of skin color, and it is something that we can appreciate no matter what an author's skin color is, whether we ascribe it to the fact of belonging to an ethnic minority or just to the fact of being a genius author who manages to touch upon something as specific and general at the same time as what makes our human experience something that can be shared and transmitted.